Join us. Today we are going to be talking on reopening ministry and dealing with behavior. And it's my honor to have my friend Tiffany Crow join us again, behavior specialist. Tiffany, welcome. Why don't you just take a minute again and just introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Doc. Which have to start with first. I am a educator by trade. I taught early childhood education, and through that fell in love with that outlier kid and went to school to become what is a behavior analyst. I specialize in applied behavior analysis and provide behavior consulting to school districts for self-contained students and those specialty classrooms, but also in the general ed population. And then also done a little running a special needs ministry, disability ministry at the church that I attend. So I think that's what brings us here, is the merging together of those two fields with behavior. And I think no matter where you're working, if you're working with people and children, you're gonna have behaviors. So we all behave, that's what we do. So we all behave, that's what we do. So it's a great topic to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, so excited to have you with us again, Tiffany. So thank you. A few weeks back, we talked on just dealing with behavior at home during the pandemic. And now, as churches are looking to restart ministry, relaunch ministry, where everything's going to be completely different. Yeah. And so that's a thing now, especially as ministry leaders, we need to start thinking through not just, the whole issue on how are we going to do ministry, which is a big issue. And we're actually going to have another whole talk on that here again in a couple of weeks. We've had a few with that. Yeah. But because ministry is going to look different, we're going to have our kids coming back. One, their routines have been out of whack for months. It's just been exploded. Yeah. They're trying to get back in schools, depending on where you're at. It may be virtual, it may be a hybrid, it may be in person. But whatever it is, it's different than what it used to be. Everything's completely different with that. And then ministry on top of that is going to be different. So everything in the world is different, and you've got individuals who thrive on routine, who have no routine. Yes. So what happens when there's no routine? Behavior. And so
right, yeah.
We have to talk about how we can survive that behavior and make it through that. So let's just kind of dive in. First, what are some things that we need to be aware of? Kick off to you. Where do you want to go? Start with here.
Well, I have some general thoughts that I've thought about with reopening our ministry here, and a few ministers that I've gotten to talk to, meeting them through forums and then getting on the phone. So I think that we could kind of go through some of those, just kind of some general plans. And then as we're talking, every one of our ministries looks different, whether you're in a religious organization, a nonprofit organization, however you're serving these individuals. There's no right way to do it, and there's no right way we're all opening differently. We all have different degrees of setup, volunteers. So as you're doing it, if you cannot envision kind of what we're talking about in your setting, they can shoot you a message, right, or a question, and we can try to help you problem solve that creatively. So kind of what I'd like to talk about is general templates, and then viewers are going to have to be able to generalize that to individualize for their setting and their people. So one of the things I want to say is planning and expecting behavior is the first thing, and being prepared for behavior. So thank you for doing this talk, Doc, and knowing that it's important, because expecting it makes it not a surprise. And when it's not a surprise and we expect it, it doesn't catch us off guard and we don't get flustered by it. So the first thing is expect it. Doc kind of mentioned earlier that things are out of whack and everything's different, right? A few times, with that, we're going to expect our kids to respond differently to our environment, differently to us, and differently even to their parents. So just expect it, and then be surprised if everything goes smoothly. So this is Plan for Armageddon time, which is kind of what I typically like to do. So, so we're going to kind of talk a little bit about how to plan for that and then move from there.
Perfect.
So just kind of probably everybody is going to do this, but in case not, I do some check-ins with parents. Either have buddies check in, have your volunteers check in, or if you're small enough that you can do it. Ask if anything's new, if there's anything that those parents are anticipating, and how their problem solving goes. Parents aren't going to know all the time how their children are going to react. We reopened and then closed again, and we prepared for Armageddon, and everyone was just so happy to be there. Everyone was perfect, but it felt so much better to be prepared. Parents are going to have a little bit of a touch point, and they'll also be able to fill you in on if they're already back in a routine going to school, if something new popped up there or at a clinic that they're attending. So check in with them so that you aren't expecting the same kid, right? It's the same kid, but all of us, even not just those with disabilities, are changed, right? We have a different viewpoint now. And then another pretty simple thing is I would have extra volunteers. Think of what I would think of as Transition Sunday. When we are transitioning and kids are going to new classrooms, all the routines are off. We have everybody on deck that we can to help smooth that out. When you have extra people, you don't have to be in a hurry or a rush for something. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes a lot of times I work behind the scenes and things. And so parents or caregivers might not recognize me out in public. And a few weeks ago, I was going to Target, and there was an adult man that I know. I knew him when he was in high school. And he was with his two caregivers, and they were going into Target. And I just happened to need to tie my shoe, and kind of hang out for a minute because he was having a tough time going into the store. They were trying to encourage him to put on his mask. He'd not done that. And they handled it beautifully. And the beautiful part about it was they weren't in a rush. They didn't have to be anywhere. They were not there because they had their own agenda. They were there to bring him to the store and start practicing being out and about. If you have free people available that they don't have to start running the curriculum or running a group, right? They have the ability to just wait with someone. And that can be one of the best gifts that you can give these individuals and their parents. Just a little side note, this guy texted his mother later and said, "Hey, I happened to see this. And I want you to know that they just handled it beautifully. It was something I would want to happen with my kid." And she let me know that was the first time he'd been out of the house for like 3 months or something.
Right.
Okay, so if you can have extra people on, and I'll bring those people back up in the conversation later, there's other things they can do besides just be available to wait. But if somebody's having trouble going in a room, they're there just to wait with them, and then the rest of the class can continue on with what they're doing. This guy was having a hard time putting on his mask. I think this is going to be an individual organization, decision, but I would say don't fall on that mask sword. As many people as can are falling on the mask. And if, it's falling on the mask, they're saying to wear the mask. But if you have somebody who doesn't want to wear a mask or can't tolerate wearing a mask, the parent can't get it on, don't let that be a reason they can't come to church. Work around it. And don't make that a source of behavior contention between you and the individual.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for us to remember and remind our ministry leaders out there that there will be people out there who, because of their diagnosis or what's going on, they may not be able to wear a mask. And so we really, especially when you're coming to disability ministry, you cannot make a blanket rule, everybody must wear a mask. And on top of it, you're dealing with sensory issues on top of it too. So, you can definitely, if you want to have the rules, definitely enforce that the volunteers, the buddies, wear the masks. That I think is very, wise, and would go ahead and do that. Even if the rest of your volunteers, and the other ministries don't do it, I would suggest it for the disability ministry. But I agree with you completely. Let's not increase the fight trying to keep a mask on an individual with special needs,
Yeah.
because you're only going to be, raising the opportunity for behavior to be coming.
Let's pick and choose our battles, and I have a few other things. I've heard some creative planning through either the school districts or other churches that I'll share that might kind of alleviate some of that. They're not wearing a mask thing. And then also just kind of on that topic as far as permission, I have heard of quite a few churches doing a waiver or some type of parent permission form, particularly for their disability ministry, where they have one-on-one buddies that just kind of saying, hey, everyone else is kind of following these CDC guidelines. Do we have permission to touch the buddy, to hold hands with your child, to touch, whatever. And if that makes you feel more comfortable to run your ministry and do it behaviorally well, then that's something that I think you should do. So I think you could put on some forms and ask for people's templates that are already being made.
Right.
So in that, that's kind of just ahead of time. So there are some things that I think you could do to prep the students, the individuals, for coming to attend church. And these, I think I'm going to go pretty quickly because I think they'd be pretty familiar. You slow me down if we need to dive in deeper, but you want to get them as much information ahead of time as possible. How do we get these individuals information on what to expect when they come back? Social stories. Social stories are kind of being outdated with our technology, right? Make a video now, right? Send them a video. You can send it to each one of your students, or you can also post it on your websites, your Facebooks. These social stories, which is a kind of like a book or a story with pictures, you can even put videos in it, make it through PowerPoint or Google Slides, and you can share them with people. Or just make a video walking through the building, showing changes, walking through the special areas where they're going to be. I would make sure to show certain individuals there that they're familiar with a mask on, and they may even take their mask off and say, hey, I can't wait to see you, put it back on. You want to, you do all that love stuff, but also, we love you guys, can't wait to see you. I just put a heart in my notes. That's why I said the love stuff.
Yeah.
They're your people, so you want to see them. So you make it personal, but then also kind of state some of those expectations. Here's what you're going to see. Here's what we're going to be doing differently. This is what we expect. And even if you think you need to go so far, grab a few friends, kids, and act out some portions of your morning routine and what that might look like. Send those out, put them available so they can see them. And that really is going to alleviate a lot of anxiety, not only for the kids, but for their parents. If those parents know those expectations, they're going to know how to support their child and you before they get there. So if you have that information out there, things are going to go a lot more smoothly.
Let me just piggyback on that real quick too, Tiffany. That's one thing where SOAR wants to help you out with that. We're actually in the process of developing a virtual directory for disability ministries out there. So what we are in the process of doing is letting every ministry in the country know, if you put together a 5 to 10 minute video of your ministry, share what it looks like, how things work, send it to us. We're putting together a virtual directory where your families can see it, volunteers can see it. It's going to be a great way that you can recruit new families, new volunteers, but it's also a great way to allow other ministries see what other ministries do. But some places may not have the ability to put that on their website. I know a lot of churches have very limited space they can put on a website or anything. So we're happy to help with that. We'll have all that. It'll be searchable by state and city and all that. But contact us at info@soarspecialneeds.org. And we'd love to help you with that. But that's a huge one. Having that all on video, and you're right. Social stories have kind of gone to the side because video now is such a big thing. and everyone's used to watching the video. But yeah, put it in a 5-10 minute video. Show everything about your ministry. Show the rooms, what it looks like, what the expectations are, and we want to help you. We want to do that, and we're actually going to be launching that after the Wonderfully Made conference here in a month. So we're excited about that. So contact us, and we'll help you with that as much as we can.
That's a cool resource, Doc. Y'all are getting real creative.
Absolutely. COVID is making us think outside the box.
Yeah, we're seeing some really cool things, and lots of different.
That's right.
Okay. There are a few other things just with that. If there's an individual who you think could benefit from this, and I've come across at least two, you could do a tour of the building and a tour of their area. You do that during the weekday, offer it to the parents where there are no other, there aren't people there, right? So that the parents don't have that pressure and they're going to be willing to come and practice, particularly if they're anxious about their child or adult coming back. Another thing to consider, potentially you would hear of this when you talk to the parent, or you might just find out as you start up. This is a time to make exceptions, in my personal opinion. So if you have that student who really is having difficulty with crowds or personal space or change in general, I would consider inviting them to come either early or late and have someone available to facilitate that. That way they're missing the crowds. They're able to focus on one thing instead of a bunch of different people with masks on, or, just anything that could alleviate some of the stress. We've even gone so far as we have a back door that is not used by the rest of the church congregation, that is 2 doors from our self-contained classroom that we offer. We have had some people that we've gotten permission for them to enter through that back door. So they have 1 door and then scoop into our self-contained room, and they get to escape all the rest of it. That may also potentially be something to consider for your more physically fragile individuals, if they're worried about them being exposed to large groups of people. That, I think, is a talk with your safety team, and a lot of promises that you will make sure that door is closed, and then maybe even they added in their route to have your back, because it's not a door that's typically accessed. So I think it's time to make exceptions like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, things to prep for your curriculum or your instruction where you're going. These things that we're talking about right now, I've talked a lot about antecedent and consequence events. All the things we're doing right now are antecedent things. They are things to prevent problem behavior from happening. So the more you can be prepared and ready, the less likely problem behavior is going to happen. And then we'll talk about kind of strategies for after. I would prepare for less demands, kind of take it off of your plate. We are not trying to get through everything that we used to get through. And this is not forever, but this is when you're reintroducing, you're coming back. We want to be able to take time to build rapport, to reinforce, to teach directions, and then your new expectations. This is your area. Here is the way we're going to rotate through these stations. You're going to teach these routines with minimal content so that you can focus on actually teaching that routine and expectations over and over with repetition, and then you're going to reward it. They want to do. So really take the time to think about what you want these environments to look like and what expectations you have, so that you can clearly teach them, not just expect them or tell them. You're going to need to teach them to your students. And this would be great for across the entire elementary, preteen, high school, church body, right?
Right.
So all those really kind of apply for that. So just kind of take that off. Imagine this is really what particularly younger elementary school teachers do the first week of school. If we don't take that time to teach them how this system runs, it's gonna run clunky, and we're not gonna get as much learning done in the future. This is a cool time to restart with that. Talking about areas, if you are trying to keep people 6 feet apart or in their own personal space or whatever, there are a lot of really cool ways that I've seen people do this, and you guys probably have too. I'm going to just mention a few of them. And Doc also, the visually, I really think if you have a space you need them to stay in, you need it to be a visual space that they can see. So the first and easiest that I can think of is a towel. I have heard of many self-contained classrooms using towels, and you can even ask them to bring their own beach towel, so that is literally their space, and then you space it, put it down, and then they can pick it up and move it. If you're rotating to different rooms, they know what it is because it's theirs, and it identifies a pretty decent space. Doc shared with me that you guys at your church are using hula hoops, right?
Yeah, tape down hula hoops so they can't be pulled up. And then it's easy to clean them afterwards as well.
Yeah. The more I talk about it, the more I like that. Bring your own towel and take it home. Wash it when you, and I guess that depends on how much you're thinking about the physical, bringing in people's things from their homes, if that is a factor or not. Painter's tape on the floor. There's dancer dots. There's these cool new, they're about this big Velcro dots that Velcro onto carpet and then pull right back up. They use them for like giant games of Twister or something like that. So any of these kind of ideas to visually mark that area. And then when you tell them this is their area, you cannot just expect them to stay in that area because you told them, right? This is where that positive reinforcement comes in. I'm going to teach you an expectation, and then I'm going to make it valuable for you to follow that expectation. This is with any of your expectations, but we're going to just kind of dive in just a second for stay in your area. So I'm going to teach you this is your area, and I want you to stay in this area. And then I'm going to reward you for staying in it. And the more that I reward you, the more likely you are to stay in that area. Now, this is a time that we have to rethink rewards. What are we using for reinforcement? If you've heard any of my talks, I love edibles because they're easy to fast. They consume them, they're gone, and they're ready for another one. They're very motivating for most of us. But a lot of people don't like to use edibles, but also now you have the enhanced concern of COVID. So if you want to use edibles, you can ask mom or dad to send something up from home, or you can have some prepackaged things that you can kind of work one out at a time from the package. That's where I would go with it. But there is air high fives, there's golf claps that go to your camp days, right? Your church camp days, the thunder claps, the silly faces. I will make this crazy face whenever you stay in your area. Always just praise. I really like what I call instructive praise, where you are praising with the instruction. I really like how you are staying in that area. You know where your towel is. You got your hula hoop down. Way to go, right? You stay in your area. So any of these, foot high fives. I've seen these a lot where you're high-fiving with your shoes, right? And these are fun. I think they'd really bring a lot of reinforcement in there, and it kind of brings some levity back to our programs that might have gotten a little boring, right? Get silly with it.
Yeah.
Went on about that. The other thing that I wanted to mention about this is coming back to those extra volunteers you have on hand. They are there to be patient and wait with people, but also to be these reinforcing cheerleaders. So you have your buddies or your one-on-one people reinforcing and reiterating, but then you have these extra people coming around and just cheerleading. You guys got it going on. You know how to handle this, right? And they're just adding this extra layer. They could have stickers with them. They can, whatever you want. They can have pom-poms. Way to stay in your area. You haven't touched anybody, right? Take advantage of them however you can. The other thing that I've seen that's really creative about managing your space is really taking advantage of this 15-minute exposure guideline. I don't know if you've seen much of this, not only in schools with special services, but I've also seen it with my children's gymnastics gym, where we're not any longer just all interacting with one group. We have taken the hour or the hour and a half, and we have made stations, and we rotate stations between 10 to 14 minutes. And that station, you are exposed to a different area in the room, different people, and so you don't have the same exposure rate. Same with teachers, special services, speech OTPT coming into classrooms. We're setting timers. They're coming in at a 13-minute. When the timer goes off, they're out to give a time, go to a different group, and then come back at a later time. So really using that time frame and rotations throughout the building or the room to keep people safe. And it also breaks up the monotony, really changes things up. So that's just something you're going to really have to put forward in information for those kids that don't like change. Okay, so far, that's what I have down for antecedent strategies and preparing ahead of time. The next
add
part,
one more.
Do it.
Add one more that kind of popped in my head as we're talking. If you've got the resources to do, if you could put together a backpack or a bag for every child that you have, where they have their own sensory bag with their own fidgets with it. One, it makes it so much easier because they're not sharing with everyone. So, that helps in the whole area now that we have, COVID and that. Usually most ministries have enough where there's enough things for everybody. And in there, if you got someone, they're going to need headphones, you can put the headphones in there. If they need, a timer to help with things, you can put a timer in. But then you can just put in all these sensory toys to help them with whatever they have. And then the buddy can hang on to that. And then when they need it, it's right there instead of having to go try to find it or anything. So it's right there to help them. And again, that can help prevent any behaviors going on. If they're starting to get antsy, instead of having to go try to find it, boom, it's right there. And you can give them that fidget toy to try to prevent the behavior from occurring. So make individualized sensory bags for each child.
That's a cool idea. I like it. Got anything else? Y'all are open, right?
That's the one. Yes. Yeah. We've been open for a while here.
Okay. We reopen again this Sunday. So.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about these consequence strategies, and then if we have some time left, then we'll chat about what things have been looking like for you, or if we have any questions. So consequence strategy is it's after behavior, right? We have seen some problem behavior, and now what do we do? And in this scenario, really more we're going to be talking about how to manage that behavior and what you should be planning for ahead of time. This is the Armageddon part, right? But also there can be some strategies to that. But really right now, I think we should just talk about how to manage and how to survive those opening up. So I'd like to go back. Really, I could use the scenario that you just did, and then I'm going to go back to my friend in front of Target. There is a time for reinforcement, and then a time that reinforcement is not a part of the plan. Okay? So Doc just talked about having fidget toys or preferred items that a kid likes to individual likes to manipulate right there, readily available. That is beautiful because the timing is important. It's real important. So the buddy or whoever's working with them, or if they are independent in their group, their Sunday school teacher or small group leader needs to know when to prompt them to get them, to use their supplies. Put on your headphones, right? These are what we call precursor skills or precursor behaviors. You're going to want to prompt them to get those materials before that behavior really amps up. So you're looking for signs that it's coming. Some of those are kind of hard to articulate or really weed out. But if you ask someone who knows the individual, they can say, oh, I know when it's coming, right? A lot of them you're going to see maybe tapping, fidgeting, pacing, nail biting. There might be some happening. Whatever it is, they probably could tell you when it's coming. They just might not be able to use those specific descriptions. That is when you need to prompt them to use their supplies. Headphones really can be offered anytime, but if you have something that's rewarding that they enjoy engaging in, this is the time to do it. once they've reached here and they're escalating and we're seeing behavior, we're no longer offering rewarding things. The reason is because rewarding things increase the behavior, right? So I've got this behavior up here. Let's just say I'm yelling curse words because we missed my precursor behavior, right, to prompt it. And I'm yelling things Jesus does not quite approve of. This is not the time to say, hey, if you're quiet, you can have an M&M. Or, hey, you can have one of your M&Ms. Hey, if you're quiet, you get to play with your squishy ball, right? Because what I'm doing is pairing reward with those curse words. You have to get it ahead of time. Once we hit here, we are in what I call the stink. And you just have to manage the stink without making it reinforced and want to increase. Same thing with my friend in front of Target. They'd reached the point where they did not need to be offering reward. They weren't in a hurry. If you are not in a hurry when problem behavior happens, you don't have to offer things to get that behavior to go away. If you are planning for and expecting problem behavior, your volunteers don't have that anxiety like, oh no, I have to get this problem behavior to go away. We expected this, right? This is something that we deal with. We got it. Everyone's safe. We're going to wait it out, okay? Offering things to try to calm them down is one of the again and again because the behavior went away because they got something they liked.
Hey, Tiffany, real quick, you froze there for the last 5-10 seconds. Can you just repeat the last statement you made?
I was kind of going on a little soapbox about how often it's a very common mistake that adults use when, or interventionist or whomever, use when an individual is exhibiting behaviors. They offer things. They want to try to calm them down. And it really even confuses the adult, because let's say you're cursing and I say, hey, when you have quiet lips, you get an M&M, and they close them and get the M&M. I feel like it worked as the adult because they got quiet for a minute. But guess what? What I don't know behind the scenes is I just taught them they got to say beep, beep, beep to get offered an M&M, right? So really it's that long-term thing that we're looking for, and you've got to be kind of aware of that. So
good point.
Don't offer, once you see behaviors, let's leave reinforcement out of that, the things that they really enjoy, and let's save those till they're back in appropriate behavior, and then give it to them, okay?
And the other thing to remember with some of those sensory toys, fidget toys, when that behavior is escalated, those all of a sudden can be turned into weapons too, which you absolutely don't want. You don't want them to start being thrown at you and other things. So other things to remember. You know, there's definitely, you nailed it. There's the right time to use them and a wrong time. So you don't want to use them when they've escalated. Absolutely.
You know, those beach towels also can double as some protective equipment. I've held many a beach towel in front of me and swirled it around. They have so many uses. Why don't we have a bunch just hanging around? Okay, so let's say the behavior is occurring, okay, and we've got to man this. Hopefully you have the time to just chill, right? To give them the time to be patient because you have these extra people, or you have someone assigned to this and people aren't trying to rush to get it to decrease and calm down. First thing that you want to do is kind of ask yourself a question. You want to keep things safe and you want to keep decency. You want their human dignity. You don't want them to be embarrassed. How do we keep safety and how do we keep their dignity in this? And when I say keep things safe, the individual from harming themselves or others, and that's really it. Let's keep everybody safe, the individual and other people. So I would have these questions in mind. Can we manage safety right here with no changes? Oftentimes that looks like in the hallway or the foyer and we have an alligator roll happening, right? Or someone's on the floor, but you as a volunteer might have the anxiety of they're about to release church, or there's other people that are looking. Don't worry about that. If everyone's safe, you present that it's fine. This is what we do. And sometimes we get mad. I think a lot of us would hit the floor and alligator roll if we could get up without creaking, you know, is the way we're handling things right now. And you as a volunteer, your mentality and the way that you are projecting what's happening to those around you is how they're going to handle it. If this is just how we handle things and we're fine, everybody's safe, stay there. Give them a minute to get themselves together. And this is really the best strategy ever, right? Sit in it. Sit in the stink. Imagine that you have your cup of coffee and you're just waiting them out, okay?
Right.
If you ask yourself, is everyone safe? Is there anything, am I not keeping their dignity? Maybe they are in that public place and they're taking off their clothes. That might be something to consider there. Maybe they're doing something that you know would just really mortify them if other people saw. Those are some things to consider, and when you may need to do something in this problem behavior. So let's say the answer is no to one of those questions. I cannot keep safety or I cannot keep dignity. The first thing you need to consider is, can I move the other individuals? I'm not going to move this person that's having a problem behavior. Can I move the other individuals? And we then obtain safety or dignity. When doing that, we typically call this a room clear. It gets a little bit more difficult when we're talking about open spaces or churches that use, like ours, use open gym plans for a lot of our areas. In this, you need to have a plan already in place. So we have a room clear procedure, and it just, which room is, where are these people going to go? So if we need all these people to leave this room, what are they going to do? And who goes with them? What are they going to do? And how are you going to get them busy again so it's not a big deal? And it really involves maybe a go basket with a few coloring pages or something to do, and then some stickers or some type of reward. You practice this a couple times. When I say it's time to go next door, we all get up and go. And the faster you go, I got some stickers ready for you, right? And this is not a big deal. This is just one of our procedures. We're leaving the room. Jonathan needs the room right now. The rest of us don't, or, you know, whatever. If you are prepared for it, it can run smoothly as a procedure, and the kids don't even know something happened. You go, you have something for them immediately to get back to. It also helps your volunteers focus because they have a task to do instead of sitting in that anxiety of what's happening next door, right? They have a task. And so if you need templates, Doc may have some templates. I know I have a template of a room clear procedure, but really that's kind of the basics of it. How are they going to leave the room? Also, I have that as well. We have 3 doors in our self-contained room, and that's typically the one that the people are going to need to move, right? Not always, but typically. And so we talk about even which door to go out of, which volunteers go, which stay, and who they call to come back and support whoever's staying in the classroom. Do you have anything you want to add about room clears? We can talk about what happens in that room clear, but you have some go plans, go baskets and stuff?
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much hit most of it there. Nothing new I'd add. You know, the important thing, again, to remind everyone is when you're in a a general classroom, it's always going to be safer to remove the rest of the class than the individual having the behavior. So, you know, that's where it's the buddy's job to tell the teacher, hey, it's a great time to have the class go take a water break or go to the bathroom and do that. So you clear the rest of the class. Now, you're not always going to be in an area where you can do that. If you have the behavior break out in the middle of the sanctuary and during, a message or worship, you're not clearing the sanctuary.
Yep.
That's where you scoop and go and do it in the safest manner possible. So, it's just having those plans in place, knowing how to do things, making it as safe as possible for everyone involved.
You kind of get with your volunteers and look at what that environment might look like. How do we make this a non-event. And again, I can't stress enough, the more you plan for it and then you implement your plan, behavior is not a problem. Behavior is something that we planned for and we handled it, right? And then you review and you say, hey, we had this room clear plan. How did it go? And then you find out some things, right? Like, I should have brought their work with us because we got over there, but we didn't have anything to do, right? We had to make up a game, or, you know, and then you just add that to your plan and build your capacity from there.
I think that's an important thing with any behavior that you have, is to group with the team afterwards and talk through it to see how it went, what went well, what didn't go well, so you can learn from it and do better. And the only other thing I'll throw in on top of it, and whenever you're dealing with behavior, my preference, what I always tell my teams and my volunteers and anyone I work with, work your best to deal with it yourself. Don't immediately go call the parents. You know, I've dealt with some churches who, you know, as soon as a behavior, they immediately call the parents to come work. Well, what happens when you do that? You're immediately telling the parents that you are unable to handle their child. And that's not what you want to do. And those parents are going to then say, we just can't come to this church. So you need to be prepared. You need to handle the behavior. I'm not saying not to tell the parents, but you need to be able to work through it. If it gets bad enough, and there may be a point where you need to talk to the parents, but contacting the parents should not be a first thing. That should be, you know, a last resort.
And not only the message that you're telling the parents, you're telling that child, this is the behavior you have to exhibit to get to go home.
Right.
You're going to,
and that may be what they want in the first place, with it too. So.
I have seen some remarkable things from asking a parent to come out but not let their kids see them, right? You know, hey, this is something new, but here's what we're doing. Typically, I'm handling the situation, or I'm helping a volunteer handle a situation. So we're texting someone, hey, go get the parents out. Tell them not to be seen, but look through the window and tell them this is what's happening. We want them to know. But we've got it. As long as they are cool with what's happening, you know, we just want them to be aware. And then they see it and they are amazed. You know, you can't replicate the face that you see on a parent that they've been hoping and praying that their kid doesn't show that side, right? They hope they don't do that behavior at church, right? And then it happens, but that you're willing to handle that, it is like you can just see it all over their face, like they don't know what to do. Like, what have I stumbled into? So behaviorally for you, it's best if you have a plan already how to handle it and how you're going to approach the parents and let them know. If you have to clear a room and a kid is in, or you have to do the scoop and go, like Doc said, which I plan on talking about in just a minute. And it's the first time you've ever done it with this individual student, I'd make parents aware and let them kind of observe without being involved if possible, kind of hide around the corner with their cell phone video, you know, watching, so they can see and be fully transparent about the way you want to approach things. And then after, have a meeting with them, you know, maybe call them later in the week and say, hey, this is what we'd like to continue doing, or here's some changes we'd make, and you guys be on the same page about that. It's big things happen there, I think, and it really it feels good to staff and volunteers also, I think. Okay, I just want to say one more thing about the room clear. For some reason, there's always a hesitation. People don't want to disrupt the other kids. But if you have that go basket, you have the extra curriculum in there for that week, or you have old curriculum that you didn't use everything and it's a review, they haven't lost anything. They maybe 2 minutes walk into another room and then they have a sticker, and usually even if you do it well enough, it's a non-event. They're not even going to tell their parents about it. We don't want to hide it from their parents, but we want it to be a non-event. And then you guys not talking about what's happening in the other room, but you're all about them getting back to work. That's key in this room clear. So the other question, again, we're going to ask about safety and dignity. And do we need to move the other people was one of the questions. Can we stay here, right? Do we need to move the other people? Do we need to move this individual? And Oh, all of these things are criteria that you can set ahead of time. So they're this kind of, do we need to now or not? Should we move them now? Should we say those kind of questions? If you have these meetings afterwards, you can start to really define when 1, 2, and 3 happen, clear. When 1, 2, and 3 happen, we scoop and go. And there again takes out that anxiety of when and that pressure of who should handle this. And then you know what to do. Set the criteria. When this happens, we're going. And everybody's okay with this as part of the plan. So then you are gonna say, you know what, we can't clear the people in this room fast enough for safety. Or we can't clear the people in the room fast enough to secure their dignity. It's just gonna be better for everyone if we do a removal. You should have a plan on who is trained to do this, who can do the scoop and go, who's gonna support them, where they're gonna go. And if you're like every other church I know, you don't have a lot of room. So then ours actually combines with our room clear. We have somebody who's saying, hey, clear that room, they're coming, right? Because we are supporting someone walking to a room, and we're doing it as calmly, and this is what we do as possible. And we have someone going ahead of us to clear a room to make space so that we can have a room where someone can just be in a bad mood, right? And that's kind of what happens in a room clear too. So let's talk just a little bit about that.
Can I add one more point to that real quick?
Please.
One mistake I see happen in a lot of churches, when you do a room clear or you're taking a child to another room, frequently they take them to the room that they usually know they have available, and that's the sensory room. That's absolutely not where you want to take them, because that child's like, yes, this is where I want to go. I can have fun. And that's only going to reinforce them having behavior in the future. If you do go there, they're absolutely not allowed to have anything. Try to go on a corner, block everything else out if you don't have any other space. But going to the sensory room is not a good place to go when you're trying to have someone calm down from having a behavior. So just keep that in the back of your head. Think through if there's other places, because you're only going to end up having more behaviors because they're wanting to see something and wanting to do it. And you're not allowing them to do that. So you're actually going to see that behavior escalate. I've actually been at churches helping them where I've walked in and saw that happening, and it took a behavior that was, mildly elevated to just insanely elevated. So that's one way you can really help yourself in preventing behavior getting worse.
Yeah, if I wanted to stand on another soapbox, that would be one of them. So I really appreciate you saying that. I have a little further in the notes really just to talk about some sensorium stuff. And a side note, we don't have a sensory room just because I don't even know when you need to use it. It's fun. It's great. And particularly if you have people staying for more than one service, you've got several hours. Even the idea of scooping and going to the sensory room, and you're going to stay in this corner, it is effective, right? I'm not going to let them play with all the toys, but you're still more likely going to have to keep your hands on them. You're going to have to move and direct, and that is going to open the opportunity for more of that physicality, as opposed to going to a room that has really minimal supplies in it. And you can just make sure that the exits are secure, and you have someone out of the room that you can hand things to if you need to, and then you just wait. Really, you are a neutral party. Think a fly on the wall. Buddy, this is the area you can be mad. Remember, here's where you can hit. You can hit these beanbags. This pillow is for you, right? These are things particularly that we practice. But even these prompts, you want to do them minimally. You don't want to overly engage with them because you don't want this to be a rewarding time. All we want is somewhere that we can go that's safe. We can secure your safety and our safety. And make sure the cleaning supplies are locked up. Found that out recently. Dude found them in the cabinet, opened them things, and was pouring them on all of us. But our children's minister is she likes all the natural stuff. So I was like, I think you can lick it. I think we're good. So, but you find out what this looks like also, and you as a leader need to be willing to tell people to leave the room. There are people who are going to get on the floor with the kid in that removal room, and they're going to love on them and talk to them to try to calm them down. It is okay to just give them space and wait. This is really the best strategy that you can do. Make sure they're safe. Even your shimmying back and forth to block areas can be rewarding to them. So you want to stay in the room with them. You want a second person in the room for liability's sake for all of you. And then you make sure each other's okay by texting. Right? You good? Right. I'm good. Are you good? And then you'll know if you need to clear the room from there, or go even, you have the ability to go to a restraint from there. Those are talks that you've had with parents if you're handling behavior that severe. And I think that's probably a talk that you give me or Doc a call, and we can talk through that. Also, those strategies, if you're really struggling with calling parents and you want to know how to handle it, I know I would be more than happy to talk through some scenarios with you, and I think Doc would too, on how to equip you, give you some strategies and your volunteers on how you can safely manage some of those more severe behaviors without having to have the parents come and manage it. So there's that. Also have a template for that physical plan, and we even have a portion where we bring in our security team to help us as well. We also have a time where we dismiss the security team, because once they get involved, they really like to stay and help. And we don't want a lot of people looking in the door or making a scene where people say, what's going on down there? We don't remember that dignity part. We want this to be a time where they can, with as much dignity as they can, regain composure, and then we get back to where we're supposed to be, and reinforcement and reward.
Right.
We got a few minutes. I wanted to talk a little bit about that calming room. If you, okay. Calming rooms came into a conversation maybe 2 weeks ago. I ran into a lady on one of our special needs disability ministry forums who was looking for some guidelines for sensory rooms. And of course that, I'm ready to help. These are very, very tricky how to use these things. But she was coming from a different perspective. And so I wanted to just throw out there, it looks differently than how my church and potentially Doc's is set up. They're not having children's ministry open now. No students are meeting, but they are having adult church, and the adults are bringing their children. And so what she wanted to do was set up a calming room where parents could come out of the service with their kid, but the parents would be manning this. So she wanted some kind of procedures and routines for that room, and it wasn't even set up yet. So there were several things that we came up with, but what I wanted to just kind of throw out there is calming rooms or even sensory rooms could be set up in stations where you have fine motor activities and gross motor activities, and people rotate through these stations. When I have had to be physically brought to this room, I am in a gross motor state, right? And there needs to be a way for me to productively let out this gross motor. I'm not really thinking fine motor, and I'm not ready to get composure of my thoughts, right? I'm kind of talking general speaking, but so maybe 2 areas where gross motor things can happen. We're talking trampolines. Also, now trampolines could be fun too. If this is a kid who loves a trampoline, we are not tickle, giggle, look at you jumping. This is get it out, right? Let's jump. You could also make a section of this room. Pinterest is covered up with these sensory walks, and they have like areas you hop 3 boxes, you crawl 8 boxes, you tap this many things. It kind of takes them through a path where they have motions and things that they are supposed to be doing. Think along these paths, and then you're going to move into something more fine motor. Let's talk clay, Play-Doh, what's that saying? Kinetic sand,
Mhm.
things that, and they could be, again, very engaging. So you have to know your people. But this is just where I'm still kind of steaming, but I am not out of control of my body anymore. I'm reining it in, right? This is my, that little kid, that meme where that kid's going, that's that moment, right? And then once we finish this station, then we're going to move to, I'm going to just sit and I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do my counting to 10. And these stations could also be set up where you rotate with a timer every 10 to 14 minutes. Rotate around this room. This is a way to do it. If you find that you've brought someone in here and they just love that place, and you kind of caught yourself, you caught a behavior, right? Whatever they did, they want to do it again so they can get back in this room. Switch it, right? Allow them to earn access to the room. Hey, buddy, I know you want to go in there. Here's what you got to do to get it, and make it pretty easy at first, okay? Become valuable. Know that you're valuable is not the word. Trustworthy. They know that you're going to follow through. Hey, you do X, Y, Z. Let's go have 5 minutes, right? And then you get 5 minutes. Timer goes off. Let's go earn it again. So they go back out and earn it again. And you can really kind of shift those paradigms pretty easily.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I got.
No, that's fabulous. This has been fantastic today. And, something we could just continue to be talking about, but, just enormous amount of great information. I think one of the best ways to sum it up is, what you said earlier, we need to be proactive. Try to, prevent this from happening. The best way to help stop behavior is to be proactive with it. And so, that's the most important thing, is we're getting back into ministry, get things going. One, please expect behavior to happen. It's going to be there. So don't go in with blinders saying, oh, we're so excited, we're going to have everybody back, they're going to be excited to be here. That's not going to be it. They may not even be excited to be going out of the house. Granted, they may not have been out of the house for 3 months, but it's a whole new routine. They're trying to get through everything again. So it's going to be a bumpy road getting back. Be patient, love on them. Remember, the other thing I need to remind everyone, please make sure you're training your volunteers. It would not be a bad idea to completely retrain your volunteers. Go over the whole process with behavior, how you prevent it, how you spot it, and the whole process with that. I think that would be vital with getting back in. When so many of your volunteers have not been in on ground floor for 6+ months, they've forgotten things. They just have. Plus, you want to be able to vision cast. You want to get that vision out, remind them why you're doing what you're doing. So these are just some of the best practices that you can do to help your ministry start off well and to improve and go well with that. So again, I want to remind everyone that SOAR is here. We want to help you. One, we're going to be doing these virtual disability site where we want you to be able to send us your videos and we'll share them. It'll be open to anybody. It's completely free. We're doing this as a ministry to you, to where you can help show it to your volunteers, show it to your families, and then to other ministry leaders where we can get ideas from one another too. It's the best way to learn, especially in a day where we may not be able to travel to other churches and everything quite as easy as we used to. So this is a great way to see that. I also want to remind everyone, I also want to remind everyone that we have our Wonderfully Made conference coming up, October the 19th through the 23rd. We're going to have a lot more talks on behavior and many things with ministry, talks for families. Please write down right now, go to wonderfullymadekc.com to register. And through September the 15th, we have our early bird special. I extended it. The code for that is WM Early 20, WM Early 20, all capitalized, and that'll take 20% off your admission ticket. And that includes the groups, that you do. So please do that. We're looking forward to having you and want to have you there with us. But Tiffany, it's been fabulous today. Last things you'd like to share with us is before we leave.
Go get them. Get out there and love those kids. And you know what? If you have to call a parent and you have a bad Sunday, it was a bad Sunday. It wasn't a bad all.
That's right.
And you can try again. Just be willing to go back to the drawing board and say, well, that didn't work well. And I will tell you, I've done that many times, and I'm sure Doc has as well. And that you just learn from moments that didn't go well and how we can do it better. And you reassure those parents also, hey, we know that didn't look good. Let's try it again.
Absolutely. And know something that may have worked. Yeah, something that may have worked last week may not work this week. Don't get upset with that. Just, be patient and find something else. Well, I want to let you know about our talk for next week. Next week, our talk with Doc, bringing in Teresa Patterson-Barch. She is a clinical therapist, play therapist, counselor, and trauma specialist. And our talk is going to be trauma, the pandemic, and the special needs family. So I think that's going to be a phenomenal talk. I encourage all of you to come to it, both families as well as ministry leaders. This is going to be key. This is important for us to know, especially as our families are coming back. This pandemic is causing trauma in our families and our kids that we don't even recognize and know. So she's going to be talking to us how we can be aware of that, how we can work with them. So it's going to be a great time, a great talk where we can learn a lot with that. So make sure you make plans to join us next Friday for trauma, the pandemic, and the special needs family. As always, we encourage you to partner with us. If you'd like to continue to have these talks go on, we'd love to have you help us financially. You can go to soarspecialneeds.org/donate and do that. But otherwise, we love having you and can't wait to have you back next week. Tiffany, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a pleasure. Love you. And want to, again, encourage everyone, go to wonderfullymadekc.com, come to the conference, and we'll see